Theta, a co-founder with Jessica Eves Matthews of Hautepreneurs, which is the girls' club that inspires you to up your game. Welcome to another Haute Topics. Today, we're going to be visiting with Kelly Hoey. If you think of networking as circulating at boring cocktail parties and handing out business cards, think again. Kelly Hoey is the author of the best-selling book, Build Your Dream Network, Forging Powerful Relationships in a Hyper-Connected World, which explores a fresh new approach to mastering this time-worn skill. Forbes named Kelly as one of 5 women changing the world of venture capital and entrepreneurship. Fast Company says Kelly is one of the 25 smartest women on Twitter. Business Insider lists Kelly among their 100 most influential tech women on Twitter, and Inc. calls Kelly one of the most well-connected people in New York City startup scene. And if that isn't enough to convince you that Kelly is exactly the right person to teach you about networking, the organization Empowering a Billion Women by 2020 has named Kelly to their prestigious 100 most influential global leaders empowering women worldwide. She has appeared on CNBC's Power Pitch, collaborates with companies like Capital One, Comcast, and Turnstone, and is a contributor to both Fast Company and Inc. Needless to say, we're in for a treat. Hi, Kelly. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are so thrilled to have you. Excited to talk about your new book, about some of the concepts in there, and I'm wondering if you'd want to start out with one of the most important for me, and that's the topic of why.
Well, I think the two of you know this, and you've probably done this yourself. And like, you always ask yourself, what's your why? And you know, if people haven't watched Simon Sinek's TED Talk or read his book, then I would say go and do that. So, you know, kind of discover your why and live your why. And for me, my why is to help other people succeed. That's where I get energy. That's where I get enthusiasm. And so everything has to fall from that. And so, you know, showing up to help other people succeed doesn't mean, you know, being a diva on stage. You know what, to speak in entrepreneur and startup terms is at some point I needed to leverage I needed to scale the advice that I was giving other people, and the inability to continually do one-on-one. And maybe that's part of it is at some point you decide with your business. So, you know, and I know Jessica's going to nod on this one is, you know, lawyers give their advice one-to-one. The way you scale your advice as a lawyer is you build a team. And so really looking at myself and saying, why write a book on this is continually being asked the same or similar questions, regardless of industry, sector, age, experience, was, okay, I'm going to write a book. The other is sort of the advice I give people, which is you need to listen to your network. And often enough, your network sees more in you than you see yourself. And one of the key studies, the book is not just me. It's lots of great case studies. And one of the case studies in the book is Tina Roth-Eisenberg, Swiss Miss on Twitter, founder of Tatley Creative Mornings, To-Do, and Friends Work Here, a co-working space. And each of those businesses was started because someone in her network said, you should do this. And she was like, what are you talking about? Me? I can't do this. And she, you know, it was her network who saw in her the potential. So for me, a lot of this was finally listening to my network and saying, all right, I should write the book. I mean, first of all, part of what you said is like everyone does have a network. And it may be that the quality of it is, or the I'm going to say the depth and breadth of it is not what you need. And all of us find ourselves in that situation at one time or another. You know, one of my own personal examples is, you know, when I wanted to make a career change, I had one network. And that was a network that would have, you know, allowed me to hobnob with bankers on Wall Street and financial advisors and lawyers. But that's not the job I wanted next, so I had to grow a network. Verily Crows, who is interviewed in the book, same thing. She was at PwC in-house doing tax work, and she really wanted to get into entrepreneurship. She found, you know, her PwC contacts were within certain jobs and they wouldn't have understood taking that entrepreneurial risk. Her close family and friends were like, what are you talking about? You're on the verge of, making, managing director, at PwC. What do you mean you want to go and do something else? You've got a good job, keep your head down, stay low. And what she needed to do was go and build a network with a bunch of other, kind of sympathetic and creative and innovative souls, so she could go and move into this new world. And the good news is that we have tools now beyond meeting people, in person, live, in a coffee shop. I'll tease on that one, Lisa, because that's what you and I did. But we had a relationship that originally started because of online. And so between resources and groups like this and leveraging online tools, you can find the kindred spirits that you then take off a group or somewhat anonymous conversation that, your first interaction may be a Skype or it may be a Google Plus Hangout, or you can find out and figure out where you are going to make the investment. You can also find out, in terms of the expansion of different groups and organizations. Like, I'm pretty sure Creative Mornings now has a chapter in Albuquerque, and that would be a very different and diverse group in terms of people who are in entrepreneurship, in innovation, who are creative. So there are a lot more tools. I mean, that's sort of the good news, and then a lot more platforms and networking spaces to meet people and expand your network. The bad news, like anything else, is these things take time, and I think that's part of the confusion with people around networking. We kind of think sort of these tools and platforms and technology is going to speed up the relationship building process. The reality is it takes time, and you need to spend the time. I just want to touch on one more point, and I think it's what everyone needs to do. They need to do an audit of your network and what your existing network is, because you need two networks. One is a narrow, deep network, and that is likely what you find in a group like this mentoring circle for Hautepreneurs. That is the people who will give you feedback, will give you advice, will give you guidance. It's the really close group of people that you can rally around you at a moment's notice. But it may be very narrow in terms of either its focus, interest, industry, experience, but you've got a lot of depth in it because you've gone, you've either had a long time that you've, worked together, or family relationships, or whatever the case may be, someone who knows you, kind of deeply and personally. But you also need to create this shallow, wide network, because that's where opportunities come from. But I would say to anybody watching this and listening in is like you said, do that audit of your network. But when you're doing that audit, don't edit things out. So to be able to say, like, here's some of my close contacts and close networks, then here are other either people or networks that I am connected to. So it could be alumni in terms of either, high school or college. It could be your church. It could be, other moms at, a daycare. It could be a volunteer group that you were once involved in. Like, list all that stuff out, because some of those loose ties may be future customers. They may be people who can provide advice, and finding ways to stay engaged with them, or to change the conversation from being around, whatever, next Sunday's service or a play date, right? And move it into who is the person I am talking to, and who are they and what their interest is. So as by way of an example, when I was manager of professional development at White & Case, one of the female associates was on the verge of partnership, and part of it was she needed to show her business development skills. She was a mom of 2 young children, and she's like, I don't have a lot of time for, networking. So it was really like saying, hey, let's do an audit of your day-to-day activities and what you do. And now, granted, she lived in Silicon Valley, but, great business opportunities can be anywhere. And so I was like, what do you do on a day-to-day or weekly basis? And she lists them all out. And I said, well, so who are all the other mothers or who are the other parents, at your child's daycare or gymboree or whatever it was? And she's like, I don't know. I said, well, maybe you should start finding out, because that person is more than little Billy's mom or dad. They have a life, they have a network. Who are they? And so start paying attention to who they are. I mean, the long and the short of it, the fairy tale ending to the story was, one of the other moms who she only knew as like little so-and-so's mom was like general counsel at Cisco. It's like, hello, like your greatest opportunity may be right in front of you. So take a greater interest in who these other people are, and take a greater interest in telling people what you're doing, and in terms of what your business is, what you're working on right now, and be able to talk about it. I hate to use the word intelligently, but you know what I mean? Like in terms of a confident, sharp, to the point kind of way, because think about who you want to do business with, think about who you want to help, think about who you want to give your time to, and then ask yourself, when I'm talking to people, am I conveying the type of person that I would want to do business with? I mean, when I say stop committing random acts of networking, it's understand why you're undertaking an activity. Because, I mean, if you walk into a networking event or a conference or cocktail reception or whatever it is, and you're thinking, oh my God, why am I here? You should know your why before you step in. How does any activity relate to the people you need to connect to, which relates to what's my goal, what's my challenge, what's like, what am I trying to achieve here? And for me, networking always starts, the beginning for me is always the goal. Is it, if networking is problem solving, what's the problem? What's the challenge? What's the need? But I don't say that in a needy way, but really as giving you a direction to go to or go in. And then who are the people who can help you? Because not everyone in your current network or in, a network you want to build is going to be in a position to help you with any particular problem or challenge at any point in time. And then what are the tactics and activities you need to do to connect to them better? So, thinking about, so when you think about that and you say, okay, well, someone wanting to grow their network, you know what? Attending a lot of online events like this, spending time watching videos and events from other networking or conferences, spending time getting to know other people, being curious in that regard is not random networking. What you are doing is establishing where you should be spending more time. When I stepped into the New York startup community in, I'm going to say 2010, 2011, there was not an event I didn't go to, because I needed to understand the community. And so from somebody else's perspective, it could be like, okay, she's just a complete another social butterfly, or, what is she doing? She's attending this meetup, she's attending that meetup. It wasn't random, it was entirely intentional. What is this community? What's its dynamic? Who are the players? How do they operate? All right, where now do I need to focus my time? And so a lot of it was like that research that had to be done. Can you take, from online to offline? I mean, I sort of ultimately feel that, the relationships aren't solidified until we do this. These lovely devices may be, rewiring us in some ways, but there is still a very primal and Neanderthal piece about us that until we lock eyes, thank God we have computers with cameras on them and we can Skype and we can do FaceTime. but you can get to know a lot about people because of online. And then between doing that in-depth research on who a person is or what the dynamic is of a group and how their conferences or meetups or gatherings, you know, how they function, you can get a pretty good idea of where you should spend your time and who you should spend it with, so you can use your resources effectively. Because yes, it does get very expensive to run around, and if you're going to make that choice to do that, then you want to maximize it. So, you know, hopefully that makes some sense, and there's probably a whole lot of information I gave in there. So let me stop. This is a completely nonpartisan, non-political statement, but, you know, President Trump, whether he is online or offline, my guess he's the same person. Whereas there is so much in terms of the way people use online tools that there can be this disconnect. And I always say to people, you know, you need to think of online, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or any other platform. Those are just other networking rooms. And so conduct yourself in them as you would if it was a physical space. Don't forget, behind that technology is a real live breathing person. It's not an algorithm. It's not, you know, just a profile. It's a real person. And I think not everyone treats those tools in an authentic way, that when, you know, you kind of step over the threshold from online to offline, that it's like seamless. You know, a lot of the times those things we kind of bump over the step when we meet someone, because there's so different between who they are online and who they are offline. And I think the more you can be yourself in every networking venue, the more you're going to increase your chances of having these deeper relationships wherever they started. Talked about it earlier on another podcast, and with respect to bigger companies, staying silent is actually going to cost them, my view, is going to cost them more than speaking up. And I think you need to decide where you stand on these things, and kind of, I don't want to say damn the consequences, but really have decided thoroughly and strategically, you know, how you're going to proceed in this very trying political time, you know, for both sides. You know, Uber and Lyft right now, there's two examples in terms of very different approaches, you know, two very similar companies, two very, you know, similar offerings, two very different approaches. And, you know, one of them, and thinking of Uber, you know, given past, I want to say, transgressions that have caused friction with their ethics and morals, their responses now ring hollow, whereas Lyft can come out and really, you know, leap ahead in terms of how people, you know, feel about them. From a non-political perspective, you know, you think about some of, you know, the advertising you're seeing now, and Maybelline choosing to use a male beauty blogger as a spokesmodel, and you know, really going down the path in terms of transgender. Now, a boomer generation may just be like, what is going on here? But to millennials and Gen Z, hey, that is not something they even worry or think about. And for Maybelline, you sort of go, oh, you have two generations of equal economic power. Which one am I going to bet on? And if I now turn off a large percentage of the boomer generation, well, guess what? I got this economic powerhouse fueling my future. You guys are getting kind of long in the tooth anyway. It's a strategic decision. So, I think you need to think about it, and I think, you know, PR and communications now for your company and your business becomes more important than ever. If you're not in a position to hire someone, then educate yourself. whether it is studying, what other people are doing well, whether it is really educating yourself and putting in, tools to listen and watch. If it's really thinking through, because this is not just crisis communications. This is not just, hey, I've got a new product. Anyone want to talk about it? This is every aspect of your business that has to have strong on the PR and communications so that you can, decide and address these things. I also think it's one of those things that you have your own, because, for a lot of us, when we are our business, like this is it, the business is Kelly, is Kelly, is thinking about how and when you're going to talk about these things. So for me, LinkedIn is not the platform to discuss partisan politics. And it was interesting, LinkedIn was actually getting a lot of heat back in terms of users saying sort of like, we don't want to see this stuff on here. So in terms of people publishing articles or using that influencer status or platform for partisan politics, it's like, we don't want to see it there. We want business there. If you want to express a point of view on how a regulation or government policy may affect a business issue, that's fine, but vote for Joe, not Betty kind of stuff. It was really interesting that as a user base, they don't want to see that. And I'll personally say, I don't want to see it on there either. I want to see business. I want to see something about, not-for-profit or community service, maybe philanthropy. If there's some recommendations on conferences or things that are going to help my business, that's what I want to see there. Facebook, Facebook, you might want to say, who are you interacting with? Friends, family, do you segment lists? Because there may be people you want to share that you're, in support of something or not in support of something, but you don't necessarily need the world to know. And you can create, different lists and groups, to do that. And then, I would say good old Twitter's a cocktail party, and you decide who you're going to have a cocktail conversation with. And hey, I get some interesting ones these days. So, and that block and that mute button comes in handy. This is what my business is. It's about being inclusive, and this is what we do here. But I would think about how you address that, across the board. And then as you hire people, you need to think about that too, because everyone's personal, say platform becomes either a strength or distraction to your business. Mm-hmm. And the more you can get all your employees or contractors or whoever they are working in connection to driving your business, like the better. I think about IBM and what they've done, which is basically said to all of their employees, talk, have blogs, get out there on social media, because instead of having 20 people recruiting for IBM, they have, 20,000. But you do need to kind of think about, all right, how are we going to address this as a company to say, I want people who are active and opinionated and in the community. But when we come in here, this is the environment we are. We all come together because we're creatives, and we all come in here, and, maybe look at something like Holsty that have manifestos and say, here's the manifesto that we're going to have. And, we're going to agree to disagree. All right. Well, this is also a great example to be able to say, all right, with my business, do I have too narrow a network that is feeding it that I have to, one wrong step or move and they go away. And then this is, we know this is lawyers, Jessica, let's not offend our big corporate client because then they'll go away. And making sure that you're feeding your pipeline so that you're not so reliant on one group that, all of a sudden they're like, oh, heck, we've listened to, those at the top and we won't do business with, someone because they're a Democrat or someone that they're a Republican or that they're a woman or that they live on, streets that start with the letter A, or, you can come up with all sorts of ridiculous things. So to make sure that you actually have a diversity that's feeding your business to strengthen your business as you go forward. with writing the book, when I pitched the book proposal, one of the first things the literary agent who I was pitching, hoping she would like take me on, was she said to me, "Your audience that you've said is for your book is too narrow. It is not just for women. It is not just for startups. Here's who needs this book, so we need to rewrite this because there is a bigger, broader audience." And so the book was actually written for a bigger, broader audience. And that's kind of playing out now in terms of media I'm seeking, in terms of audience I'm asking to get in front of, in terms of really targeting what happens with it. And so part of this is sort of living and breathing it at the same time. But knowing, kind of, yes, you may have a sweet spot of, oh, my business is really attracting these people, but then proactively go and get those other ones so that you've got, a bigger pipeline to fuel your growth. Don't change. That's my advice. Might sound counterintuitive, but in this digital age and world, I think introverts make better networkers. And I say that because I was surprised to discover, doing the interviews for my book, that most of the people I interviewed were introverts. I had no idea until they sent me back their answers, because I never asked them the question. What I looked at were people who had been very successful in either moving up a corporate ladder or getting on a board or surviving Mount Everest, like seriously. And most of them are building a national wealth management practice. I mean, when their answers came back, and somewhere in their answers they said, "I'm an introvert, I'm an extreme introvert. This is surprising because I'm really introverted," all this kind of stuff. And they are, I think, much more purposeful, considerate, focused, and deliberate in their networking. And in an era when we have so many options, online, offline, all over the place, having focus and not only thinking about your own discomfort in terms of the activity of networking or the imposition of an ask on somebody else, and taking somebody else's time, because they think about someone else, is because they have their own discomfort in that being asked of them. I think introverts make much smarter networking choices than someone who's like, "Oh, whoopee, let's meet everybody, let's attend everything every day because we can, and hey, you two should know each other," and all that kind of stuff that we often see. And so for me with introverts, I'm like, don't change. What I would say is, again, go back to, what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve? Who can help you? Now, how are the ways you need to get to know them? And that may mean walking into an event where, you're there to listen to a speaker because your networking is you want to get their advice, or your networking may be, all right, I do need to go and meet Jessica. Now, how do I do that? And so if you're an introvert, you've probably done the research and the background to make that smarter ask. So part of me is like, don't worry about it so much. If you find yourself in a situation where you've got the anxiety and the sweaty palms, like, take a deep breath and say, why did I step in this room in the first place?
Yeah.
And was it one of those situations where you made a bad choice, or do you just need to like reground yourself in terms of going, right, I came here to do X. Once X is accomplished, whether that is hearing a speaker, meeting one person, whatever your X is, give yourself permission to leave. You don't need to stay. Why, But I'm, like you mentioned, like, I'm an ambivert as well. People would assume I'm an extrovert. I'm not. I get my energy from crowds and the room I'm in. So whether the crowd is 5 people or 500 people. And there's times where I'm quite happy to be in the corner talking to one person or with my face on my phone.
Me too.
So don't worry about it. But like I said, it was really interesting to me. Like practically everyone in the book is an introvert.
That is so interesting. I love to hear that, because you do hear that a lot these days. People sort of talk about their introverted nature and how it really is a barrier to their success. So I love hearing what you have to say, because that should give people a lot of encouragement.
No, like I said, I think much more considerate and compassionate and generous and focused in their networking, because it may be sort of managing their own discomfort in the whole process of networking. But because we've now got this intersection of mobile and digital and online platforms and explosion of in-person networking, I think it plays to their strength, or maybe turns their weakness into a strength, and they should, kind of continue that way. As I say to people, you've got two things in life. You've got your reputation and you've got your time. And that's all anybody else has as well. So when you're networking, you've got to be careful of your own reputation and understand that, if your reputation is diminished, you may be able to earn that back at some point. But you can never get back your time, and you can never give anyone else back their time. So the more you can kind of manage those two things, and I think, frankly, introverts are better at the time factor. They may be better at the reputation as well, but they're definitely better on the time thing, because you're like, all right, there's other things I'd rather do with my time. Well, I mean, that's part of it, is like creating that filter of when you need to say yes, and always having that very focused goal that you're heading to. And, building your business is kind of a big one, but break it down in terms of okay, this quarter, what am I doing? And what does that mean this quarter in terms of either a monthly or a weekly or even a daily basis? And so that you can very quickly say yes to or no to something that is, going to help you enhance your business. But if you know where your various milestones and things you want to achieve, when something comes at you, you have a fast way to, of assessing it and saying, how does this help me move ahead? When I was writing the book, and people were like, oh, you're traveling all over the place. What are you doing? What else are you up to besides the book? It was like, no, this is very intentional. I needed to grow and build future audience for the book. So if someone said, fly to Omaha, hey, can you come and speak in Beirut? We got a conference in Ottawa. I mean, throwing out real examples of, all right, I don't have a presence. I don't have, it's not like New York City and, startup community. I don't have the presence here. I need to go and build a relationship before I need it. Therefore, if this opportunity comes along, but I had a really clear filter in terms of, was I going to add value? Was this an audience I wanted to be in front of? Was it a new audience? All that kind of stuff. So you need to create that filter. And I'm doing this because I kind of think of it as a grid, but you'll know yourself in terms of being able to say, hey, what are the factors that need to come together for me to say yes to something, so that you can filter out the other stuff, and you don't get caught up in the, oh, am I missing out? Oh, everyone else is going. Well, who cares if everyone else is going? If it's not the right audience for you, it's not the right opportunity for you, it's not the right opportunity. Get over it, keep staying focused. I'd also say, besides sort of knowing yourself and realizing when you're uncomfortable and being able to stop and analyzing it and sort of saying, oops, did I say yes to something and find myself in the wrong room, is, and this is something I really, really came to discover, and Jessica, you probably had the same thing writing your book, is understand when and how you produce your best work and guard that time. And so in terms of chunking your day or scheduling or whatever you need to do, because you can't get your time back. And so you may say, I perform my best work here. So from, I don't know, 8 in the morning till 11 in the morning. Well, don't schedule breakfast meetings and coffee dates then. Find another time. Right. Or say, I remember Veronica Sontsev, who was one of my co-founders with the Accelerator. She's she had all sorts of other, I would say, younger, newer startup founders who wanted to meet with her when she had her startup InSpark. And so she said to them, from this time to this time on Saturday mornings, I'm at this coffee shop at this location. Drop on in and see me.
That's awesome.
So she's like, if someone took the initiative to get there on a Saturday morning, she'd have time for them. She said, otherwise, that's when I went and just did kind of garbage emails and cleared out stuff. And I was going to be there anyway if someone dropped in. And if someone didn't take the initiative to meet me then, You know,
that's
my
brilliant.
thing.
I'm totally going to steal that.
do it,
love
do
that.
it, do it. So some of this, in terms of your networking and your signaling, you know, we have to realize like all these things, pieces come together, and you can either put them together very powerfully to move your business forward, or you can be ignoring pieces that you know could be holding back your business, or you could be sabotaging your business by you know, in terms of what you're doing. And no, I agree with you. There's always like, hey, you have to do everything, and I'm like, no, you have to do what's right for you. And you have to do and spend the time that is going to take you forward in the most powerful way.
Amen, Sister Friend.
Church of Kelly. There we go. God knows. I say it like I'm like Dr. No. I'm like Dr. No. Like, you know, 2015 was my year of no. I can't tell you what I missed out on. Probably endless things. I'm like, whatever. I'm over it. Kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, you got to do what's right for you and to take you forward. Yeah. No, this is a tremendous question. I mean, first of all, you got to think about, you know, what is it that you're putting out, you know, the information and the signaling you're putting out to the world in terms of the opportunities that you want. You know, like if I was always putting out, you know, hey, you know, I was a corporate lawyer, I'm a corporate lawyer, you know, it's very clear that I like bury that because I don't want to be called on for those opportunities. It's also then having a clear understanding of what your business needs. And so that you're able to say to someone, you know what, this is a really intriguing board opportunity you're talking to me about, but here's what I need to know. And it's understanding your own skill set of what you're bringing to the table, and understanding the flip side of it is what are they bringing to your business? Because, you know, we all want to do something to contribute back to our communities. We all want recognition, but if you're spending your time and energy somewhere, it needs to tie into your business interests. You know, maybe it fulfills your personal life, like maybe it hits a whole lot of reasons, but most of us don't have a lot of spare time if we're an entrepreneur. So if you're picking activities that are, you know, going to take you away from being the CEO, the founder, the whatever with your business, you know, you better make sure it adds into a marketing pipeline, a sales pipeline, a something, not just, yay, the community likes me. You know, again, like really have a hard look at yourself. What do you bring to the table? So they may be saying, oh, you know, you'd be such a great leader. And you're saying to yourself, all right, what are they really after? Oh, look, they really want, you know, oh, they want me on this because they know I know all these people, and what they're saying is I'm going to be X, but what they really want me to be is, you know, the chair of their benefit committee. Like really know, you know what I mean? Like know what you really bring to the table, know what they may be really after, and know how to say what you really want. So to be able to say, you know what, this is an intriguing opportunity, but here's the type of board position I'm really looking for, and I'm not sure from what you're saying if this is a fit. Yeah. I mean, it's something I did myself. I resigned from a whole lot of things because, you know, I don't want to be you know, a member of something in name only. I don't want to be a board member or this or that in name only. I know I have to be able to give, you know, time and resources and energy. And so there was a whole lot of stuff I resigned from. And I think being authentic about it and being honest to be able to say, I took this on thinking I was able to do X, Y, Z for you. And that's just not the case. So here's what I can do going forward. I can commit to, you know, being this champion. I can commit to helping you find a replacement. I can commit to doing, you know, whatever, but I need to step down from being involved to the level that you need someone, because you do not need to have someone listed on your committee, your board, your whatever it is, who's there in name alone. You need someone who is, in the trenches, kind of digging. And really, once, and this is such a great question, I'm glad you asked it, Jessica. Like, once you've done that once, it makes you so much smarter about saying yes going forward. And to be able to say to someone, this is why I'm flattered, but this is why I'm not the right choice. Or this is intriguing, please come back to me in the future, because I can't commit like right now to do this. And it is, again, I go back to that filter. Part of your filter is, kind of your value system as well. And there is the time, there is the focus where your business is, and there is, kind of your values. And that's actually, I think, where it gets sticky, like it gets hard and sticky in a, how do I pull myself away from this? Because there's so many good things we believe in. But, when you can't give your full undivided attention, you're not helping anyone in that regard. So I'm just very honest with people now about what I can do and what my time commitment is. And then I often suggest them other ways I can help them. Maybe as a newcomer, you're like, I need to say yes to a lot more things. But what you don't need to say yes to is, you walk in and you realize, oh, great, it's, not my audience. Or you're like, okay, this is what I read online about this group and their dynamic and what happens. What they said online and what they say, what happens in person are two different things. Like, at the point you discover it's not valuable, like, leave.
Okay.
There's not like, oh, it's an hour and a half an event and I have to stay an hour and a half. If you walk in and go, all right, everyone online and my best friend said, go to this, it's great. Guess what? Not so good. Or maybe it's like, okay, not so good this time. So for you as being a newcomer, there's going to be a period of discovery that you're just going to be like, you know what? I may turn my wheels, or I may feel like I'm wasting my time. But you're not wasting your time, because what you are doing is filtering down and discovering where are the best opportunities. And some of this research in terms of where you should spend your time. Yes, you can do it by researching online or talking to people who have gone to groups and events before, or getting the lowdown from when they're good and when they're not so good, and what's the dynamic, from how the room's set up to what time people arrive, and all that kind of stuff. And some of it's just going to be your own gut when you walk in and you see these things, and you do this enough in the discovery process that you start filtering out, going, all right, unless there's an exceptional speaker, no point in going to this group. This group may seem like a snore fest, but it's where the movers and shakers are. You'll know, right? But some of this, don't feel this running around right now is a waste of time. It's only a waste of time if you're not taking the data points and acting on them going forward. Yeah, I mean, you never know when you're going to need someone from your past life. And my past life of law and lawyers is coming in pretty handy right now, with a book. And again, this is where I kind of go back to, this is the benefit of, all these different platforms and maintaining an active presence, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, whatever, name your platform of choice. Is you've got a way to stay in touch with people. I got an email the other day from a former associate at White & Case. I mean, I walked out of that firm in 2009. I, may have seen this associate for the last time in 2006 or 2007, but we've been on LinkedIn connected since that time. And she has watched my post, because the activity of posts, she has watched that and stayed in touch sort of silently in there, in the background. So, in terms of, how you maintain and don't, it's kind of scorched earth, you think about the information you're putting out there, you make sure you're staying curated, you're staying connected. There may be times when you're curating and you're, kind of doing an accordion with your network, it's growing it or contracting it. But, have tactics like, the Christmas card, so to speak, watch for people's birthdays, put updates out there. Watch how and when your network interacts with you, and pay attention to those signals. And then also think about, in terms of, often people want to know about, hey, Kelly, how do you organize your contacts? You don't want to know. It's a nightmare. When I come up with a secret formula, I'm going to be on like QVC or HSN selling it. But watch yourself and think about how you start to narrow down connections or networks as you need to make them. And why I say that is, often enough for me when I'm thinking about, take a book tour, for example, how do you decide how and where to start on this? For me, that's geography. And I realize it's sort of a natural flow for me because that's what I generally do anyway. I think of geography or company, and that then flows down the research, or geography, company, or industry expertise. But even on industry expertise, I then may go back to geography to say, all right, where do I know here? So there's usually some sort of peg that way, and that's where I start sort of a data search on who are the people I know and where are the right connections that way. But each of us is unique and different. Each of our networks is unique and different in the sense that we're all individuals having a personal relationship with other people. And you need to kind of think about how you connect with your network and the ways that you start to think about problem solving in terms of who you need to connect with and why, and then start thinking about how you can better organize your contacts based on the way you problem solve and think about the people you're bumping into, so you can kind of filter down and be much more effective in your asks. So one of the things I think about, and some of them are kind of personal, but when I think about people I've talked to, or people who I've interviewed, and Allison Levine comes kind of boldface to mind, is so many of us and so many of the people that others want to speak to. So I'll just speak as someone who gets a lot of asks. Is we leave a lot. We've got a trail out there. There's a lot of ways to, yes, connect with me, but those same connection platforms, tools, also tell you a lot about me. And I think the failure to have done the research is a massive turnoff, because someone comes in immediately with some ask, and if they'd actually looked around and spent a little time getting to know me before reaching out, they could have reached out in a much more effective way, and in a stronger way, and in a way that would enable me to be helpful to them, as opposed to just being like, are you kidding me? But one of the biggest turnoffs in terms of people wanting to give help is not the first ask for help, but it's after that first ask and the failure to follow up. And when I say follow up, I don't mean just the little note that says, hey, thank you, right? Hey, thanks for our call today, or thanks for the coffee, or whatever. It's a failure to follow up down the road, and to be able to say, this is what I did with this advice, or this is was a result of the meeting that you set up. This is what business I got. Not just the immediate thank you, but a serious follow up after the fact. Right, and understanding that introduction through Hopes, through Hautepreneurs, that's like the start of a relationship. And that What we're talking about with networking, or what I'm talking about, is not transactional. Transactional is, the cashier at Walgreens, right? Transactional is someone who is purely, even now I'd say purely sales isn't sales anymore. It's everyone wants to have a book of business, whether you're, the cosmetic person, at MAC Cosmetics, or the shoe guy at Saks Fifth Avenue, or whatever. You need to have those repeat kind of sales. And so, getting away from this immediate sale, but to be honest, to be able to say, hey, I wanted to meet with you because, it seems to me that, what I'm doing and what you're looking for, there's some intersections. Here's what I understand about your business and where you've got some challenges. Here's what my product does that helps you. Maybe we can do something together, but not just kind of going in there for the jugular, because that's a turnoff for everybody. Gratitude and follow-up. It's exactly it. It's exactly it. And I think we get too lost and too worried thinking, oh my God, the give, there's always that giving forward and sort of a networking ethos. My give has to give back to somebody else, has to be equal to what they've given me. And it's like, no. What so many people, particularly in the startup community, who are in positions of leadership want is, exactly as you said, some consideration, some just the other person being gracious, the follow-up, let us know what happened. Yeah, exactly. Show a little Twitter support for their initiatives, show interest in what they're doing, but it's not like, hey, Brad, I'll give you feedback on your deck, seriously. God, how funny would that be? I gotta make the ask that I always say to other women is, if you want to see women succeed, you've got to support the businesses. This is my business at the moment. Amen. So, read the book.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh,
it's a great book.
Then the other thing is, and Lisa, I know, review it, review the book, tell others to read it. Tell me which, the other would be very helpful. You get too close to your own business and your own baby. Tell me which parts of it were helpful, because your aha moments may not be the ones that I think were people's aha moments. So if there are pieces of it that have resonated with you, or advice that's really resonated with you, I want to know, because, it may not be what I thought it was going to be. And that's always helpful too. And if you have success stories from applying this, I want to know that, because you know what? That gives me a chance to celebrate your success through my channels. And I would love nothing better than to be able to say, hey, somebody read this. This is what they did. This is what happened with their business. So it gives me a chance to kind of get my, advocacy soapbox again, which, I love standing on. And I thank you. And
I just love you, Kelly.
Well, yeah, let's say this is like the group that my ambivert side goes to extreme extrovert. All right, gotta figure out how I can get on the ground in Albuquerque soon.